And welcome back to Unfiltered Sports Weekly. I know. You're not used to hearing me this loud, this early, but as always, my name is the Keb.
St. Joe is in the hizzy.
So St. Joe's in a hizzy. Guess who's not in a hizzy?
The
Yeah,
Beebs.
we're missing somebody, St. Joe.
Yeah, I know.
You know,
He
and so I hope he knows what that brings along with it. He
he's
might
not gonna
jump in.
like it. He's not
He
gonna
might.
like it.
So what's funny is I'm gonna tell us really quick. We have a guest tonight, but I'm gonna tell us really quick. What's funny is that he's indisposed because he was at his son's football game. I'm gathering right because
Right.
it's football season, and the refs didn't show up, and that should tell you everything you need to know about sports in Northeast Florida.
Exactly. Exactly.
I'm just saying that it's kind of like if you follow the cab on Twitter or X, whatever we're calling it now. Every time the Braves get a bad call, something to this effect will be, "Hey, I think this is a good time to remind everybody that Major League umpires are the worst officials in all of sports." Right?
Right.
It never happens when like the Braves get a call that goes for them. They're great then, right? But
Right.
get a call against, and it goes there. So we got a lot to unpack tonight. We do have a guest. I want to bring him in. He's from a great podcast called The Fan DeLoreans. It's on the Unfiltered Sports, or I'm sorry, the Unfiltered Studios Podcast Network. And we'd like to welcome in Mr. Richardson. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Thank you.
Absolutely.
So,
Does someone from the crowd just jump in and become the referee if no one shows up? Is that how they operate down there in Florida? Like, what do we do in this situation? There's no ref. Find a fan. Ask anyone randomly.
I
so
think
where that particular school is, I don't know if you'd want to do that, because it's in a county that we always all kind of make fun of,
yeah.
but it's just kind of the way that they treat every sport down here that's not varsity, because oh hell,
Gotcha.
if that happened to, a major high school game, on a Friday night, I mean,
Right.
Right.
it would be on the news,
I'm
because they
bored.
take varsity sports here extremely seriously,
Right. Right.
but before this was a junior high game, or no, I'm sorry, a middle school game. That's how old I am. When I was there, I'm pre middle school. I'm when they called it junior high, and so it I guess it doesn't matter, But I love giving referees or officials as much crap as I can,
Of course. Of
you
course.
know.
Yeah.
So Um, couple things to get to real quick, not to monopolize the conversation, and then I want to get to what we have Mr. Richardson on for. There is a program on the Unfiltered Studios Podcast Network, comes out every Monday. It's called Nailed It, and there that jackass that's a host of that show. Um, he went over some sports movies this week, and
Hmm.
he went over a certain speech that is iconic. Okay,
Yes.
and he's too much of a wuss to say the entire thing.
No, wait a minute.
So
You have to.
what he did was he said, Kev, if you want to hear the real thing, Kev will say it on there, but I got you one better. Give me 2 minutes.
Well, you have to have some context and why you can do it, right?
After 12 years in the minor leagues, I don't try out. Besides, I don't believe in quantum physics when it comes to matters of the heart.
What do you believe in then?
Well, I believe in the soul. The cock, the pussy, the small of a woman's back, the hanging curveball, high fiber, good scotch, that the novels of Susan Sontag are self-indulgent, overrated crap. I believe Lee Harvey Oswald acted alone. I believe there ought to be a constitutional amendment outlawing AstroTurf and the designated hitter. I believe in the sweet spot, softcore pornography, opening your presents Christmas morning rather than Christmas Eve, and I believe in long, slow, deep, soft, wet kisses that last 3 days.
That's right.
Good night.
That's right.
Mr.
And it's
Richardson,
quoted
have you
many,
seen
many
that movie?
times.
Say it one time, Kevin.
Have you seen that movie?
I know the speech, but I can't remember the name of the movie.
It's a movie called Bull Durham.
Yes, that's it. Yep,
Yeah,
I have seen that, and
that
I
was
also understand why you didn't want to say all of that. But
That's right.
yes, that
Yeah,
is
yeah.
definitely
So my show is a family friendly show as well, and there's just
right.
certain words you can't say.
Yeah, and about 7 of them were in that. So yes, that
Exactly.
easily
Exactly.
understand. Yes, but
Yep.
yeah, great movie and great speech.
Yep. Yep.
So hopefully your listeners are either watch us tonight or go listen tomorrow on the audio version, and they'll get the full. I just thought it was better
Yeah.
coming from
No.
Costner himself, or Crash Davis himself.
Yeah. Exactly.
Which I
Exactly.
agree with you. I think that's the number one Kevin Costner movie, in my opinion. I'm a huge baseball fan, though. Speaking of
Yeah.
baseball, did you guys catch what happened on Sunday?
Yes. Yes.
What happened on Sunday?
The bunt heard around the world.
Man, that was a
Love
good
that, yeah.
game.
Yeah.
The
It
Little
it
League
was.
World Series. I'm proud. Lake Mary, Florida. If anybody doesn't know where Lake Mary, Florida is, it's about a half hour north of Orlando.
Yep.
Okay. It's right near a town called DeLand.
Yep.
And for us, it's only about an hour and a half away,
Right.
from where St. Joe and I are. But a game, the United States on Saturday, the United States Championship was a good game.
Yeah.
You get into the championship for the whole thing, international versus US, and you get 1-0 going to the bottom of the sixth, which is their bottom of the ninth, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then they score one run with kind of a bloop single, but they tie it up, and hey, we're going to extras. We get into the
Mm-hmm.
seventh, which
Mm-hmm.
I had to reread the rules because it's different than the major leagues because they don't have the ghost runner in the seventh, but they do in the eighth. So you get to the eighth, and you had that man on third and a bunt. And I hate this for the kids. It breaks my heart that second baseman needed to be covered first, but
Yeah.
no one was there. And
Yeah.
and the first baseman who fielded that ball, or the catcher who fielded that ball, did exactly what they did. Didn't look, they just threw. That's
Yeah.
fundamental baseball, but somebody
Yeah.
needed to be there. My heart broke for those kids from Chinese Taipei because no one was covering, because
Yeah.
he's probably going to be out, and I personally didn't want the game to end, being a baseball fan.
Right.
I wanted it to keep going. Naturally, I wanted the United States to win. But what did you guys think about the game?
I again, I'm not as big a baseball fan as you, but I definitely watched that, and I watched the ending, and the same thing that you just said, Ken. I mean, I teach fourth graders. The heart breaks for the kid because the one who should have gone over for the cover who didn't, and he threw to the empty spot. And like you said, in baseball, I learned enough from this. You just throw it out looking that someone's supposed to be there, someone wasn't there, and I know it hurt him the rest of the day. That night, the flight back, like it's just still stinging him right at this moment. But I am happy though. It was a great game, and the kids that won. I mean, you can see the joy. It's just sports in general. You can watch the joy on one side and the agony on the other in the same screenshot.
Yeah.
It just hurts more when they're kids because you feel bad when they're young like this. Adults making millions. It's a little bit different. It's your heartbreak. 100%
Yeah.
agree with you. It was just heartbreaking, but it was great to watch at the same time.
I think the best thing that the kids teach every one of us, and every year it's the exact same thing that you see in Little League, is the sportsmanship. And even though the kids were devastated, immediately afterwards, the kids all came over. They hugged the kid that made the air. They're all surround him, and they're like, "Look, we've all been there. We know what happens. We know exactly what you're feeling." And they immediately just pick him up. And it's not like, "Oh man, we're rubbing in your face, we won." It's
Right.
they're immediately picking that kid up, and almost, you know I don't know what the word is, but they're supporting him, for lack of a better term, and just saying it's okay. You know what? You'll get over it. It's not the end of the world. And the love basically that's on that field was just, it's the coolest thing in the world to see. And it happens every single year at Little League, because there's got to be a winner and a loser. And for them to, like you said, to lose it on that way is pretty hard. But somebody's got to win the game. But I love the fact that it's kind of like the year before a kid got drilled in the head And the pitcher immediately like walked over, hugs him. He was really shaken up because he hit the kid, and he, the kid that actually got hit walked off the base and hugs the pitcher, and he's like, "Look, I'm fine, I'm good." So it's the coolest thing to see sportsmanship in that game, and I just don't think you see it on display anywhere else.
It's so different than professional
Hmm.
sports because if you take it like if the Bears beat the Packers,
Yeah,
they're all like,
yeah, yeah,
or if the Jets beat the Giants,
yep,
or
yeah,
Jets pay or what name your rivalry, Ohio State, Michigan.
yeah,
It's so much different, and it really, as a true, baseball fan. That's why I watch it every year. I
right,
mean, it brings me back to my little league days to where, you know, now it for the U.S. for the Lake Mary team, it almost seemed like they felt bad for celebrating,
right, right,
Yeah.
because and I like to see that. It gives me hope for the game,
yep,
and it leads me to believe that the game that I love so much, especially at the professional level, is in good
right,
hands.
right,
That it's gonna be well taken care of, moving forward.
yeah,
But still, that being said, you need some grit, in
yeah.
there too, and the kids have it.
I
The
mean, that
kids have it.
speaks to the coaching, but it is nice that like they stay humble, and I think that's a good trait to teach kids is that it is good to remain humble and stay. It's good, and don't get too excited. You're okay to celebrate your win, but don't celebrate it too much to, like you say, rub it in their face and do things because they're out there, they're hurting. But
I mean,
celebrate when you kind of get back to the dugout when you do things or whatever. But and celebrate as a team, but just you humble is not bad. It's not bad.
uh,
Sometimes it looks
I,
better to be humble, and you look more professional if you do that.
I thought fourth grade for a long time, and then field day in our grade is the most competitive thing imaginable. We have a championship belt. It's passed between every class every year, and there's only
Hmm.
four classes every
Hmm.
year. But as we compete against each other on that day, we gather the whole grade together as a fourth grade, as a team, discuss our group yes chant that we all do as a grade level, and sportsmanship, which is the key of the whole event. How sportsmanship will cost you a win. We have to just teaching them to, like you say, celebrate, but we're not celebrating pointing over at the people who are crying. Like, we got
Right.
you, we beat you, we can't do any of that stuff. So my class won tug of war this year. It's like like we're a bracket of four. There was a round robin. It's pretty competitive with us, but we won, and then they're celebrating, and then immediately stopped celebrating, ran over into good game, game. And then the other teams, when our two final classes were going, the other two classes split up their groups, and one was cheering for us, telling us to pull, the other group
Nice.
for. That's the kind of sportsmanship that we like, and we hope to continue with obviously what we saw the other day, and we like to see more in the professional
Right.
league. It doesn't turn out like that when you get older. But the higher the stakes, the fact that the pressure on that kid is something I've probably never hit that level before, unless when I went for a job interview.
Right.
Um, and I love the pick me up part. I kind of forgot about that part until you mentioned it a minute ago. When that kid was down, clearly down, the other
Right.
kid is just like, all right, man, it's all right, it's okay, and they meant it, and
Yeah.
they meant it because they could see he was broken. Both teams.
Yeah.
It was nice. It was beautiful to watch. It's
Yeah.
kids, man. It's just that's
Yeah.
the pure form of the game.
It is. It just makes it more pure, and
Yep.
that's cool.
And so people ask me why baseball is the greatest sport ever created. That's why, because it is damn hard not to be romantic about baseball when you see stuff like that.
I agree with you. I agree with you. I think
I
there's
mean,
some
I
fun
put
things.
that on Twitter immediately, and those,
Yeah.
that gives me goosebumps. When you see stuff like that, and it had
Yeah.
nothing to do. It was a great game. It was a great game, but it had nothing to do with the outcome of the game. It had everything to do with how they did not act like LeBron James after he loses. I
Right.
mean,
Don't
it
get me
just,
started.
yeah, it
So
Don't
just,
get me
it
started.
just,
So that brings up a good point, right? Because I mean, Mr. Richardson wanted to come on for a pretty specific topic. So that constitutes a question for you.
Whatever
Is
do you mean?
well, we're going to get into it, Keb.
Did I stick my
Um,
foot in my mouth? My foot in my mouth
so
again?
when you say sport, what constitutes a sport? What is
Hang
the
on, hang on,
definition?
hang on. Can I get one thing in real quick?
Oh God,
One
seriously,
thing
you're
in
like my
real quick.
wife. You're like my
No,
wife. I just need one more
I,
thing.
I'm nothing like your wife.
It's like Columbo. One more
Um,
thing. One
yeah,
more thing.
just one more thing. We have some people listening on Wednesday that people like to send me DMs and tweets about stuff that I say. Okay. And I'm going to give them some fodder here real quick.
Okay.
A specific audience out there of about 10 to 15 people. I just want to say congratulations to the Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets for defeating the Florida State
Oh,
Seminoles.
that
The Florida State Seminoles who I defended all last winter
yeah.
for not
I'm
getting into college football playoff. They had it set up to where they could make a statement, and they just
yeah.
laid an egg on
I'm
opening week 0 college football. Florida State, you're back. I'm not defending you anymore. Did you get screwed last year? Yes. Did you screw yourself this year? Yes. You didn't perform when you needed to. You are the FSU that we all know and love. And you tried to go get a new quarterback. That didn't work. You
they are
suck.
who we thought they are.
Yeah, you suck. And we just got done talking about sportsmanship. None here for the Florida State Seminoles. Go Gators.
I'm glad you brought that up, Kev, because maybe the college committee did get it right last year.
No, they didn't. They didn't last year because they were a Power 5 conference champion, undefeated. They should have gotten in. They would have gotten beaten 60-0, but they just lost to unranked number 10 in the country, loses to unranked Georgia Tech in Ireland. And there's like out of the 50,000 seats, like 30,000 of them were Florida State fans. All you heard was that stupid chop, and anyhow, I just wanted to get that piece in. Right now, that sound that you hear is Twitter firing up. They're sending it at Keb Lives, KEBLIVES. I will say this: bring it on. It's college football season.
Not ducking them. I love it. Love that energy.
Yeah, he was a staunch supporter of the Seminoles.
I wasn't a supporter. I wasn't a supporter so much as the Seminoles. I was a supporter of a undefeated Power 5 conference getting held out of the college football playoff. I would have done the same thing if it was Wisconsin. I would have done the same thing if it was, Tennessee. I would have any Power 5. I would have done the same thing if it was Rutgers or if it was, the Rocco School of Typewriting for Women. I mean, I would have done it for all of those. So if you can name what movie that came from, I'd be impressed. The Rocco Clubo School of Typewriting for Women.
I know it. I can't think of it. It wasn't Dodgeball, no.
I'll even give you the actor who says it. Tom Cruise.
Oh, is it All the Right Moves?
No.
Jerry Maguire, no.
No.
It's not
older. 90, early 90s.
Few Good Men?
A Few Good Men.
Yeah, okay.
It was a Few Good Men.
Oh yeah, when he's making his speech and he's holding the bat.
When he's drunk.
He really does think better with that bat.
Yeah. Teaching typewriter maintenance.
Yes, that's it.
That's funny.
We're not licked to the advice of the galactically stupid. I remember that really well.
Yeah. It's a great movie.
Funny. Never move my bat. So, what constitutes a sport?
Here's what I did. Here's what I looked into. Ready? What I would do and what we've done in school is literally pull the definition, the official definition, the Oxford definition, dictionary.com, whatever. It goes an activity involving physical exertion and skill in which an individual or team competes against another or others for entertainment, period. Dictionary.com has an activity involving physical exertion, skill, and competition. That is
Okay.
the basic definition of a sport.
Okay.
And
All
so
right.
my thing, go ahead.
No. Go ahead. Keep going.
And so my point is, it was a funny conversation because I heard the snippet of the video where it was said that cheerleading wasn't a sport, and I had my 13-year-old daughter who's been a cheerleader for a long time saying, "Daddy, that's not. Daddy, say something. You know it's a sport. You know it's a sport. You should." I'm like, "Well, you know what? I happen to be part of the Unfiltered studio. Maybe I'll reach out. Daddy, you have to defend us." I'm like, "Okay, because I've been to enough of these things to know." I said, I'll reach out. And then you guys said, "Hey, you can come on." I'm like, "Oh, now I have to really defend. I've been researching and
Right.
prepared because I was
Right.
hoping for a flat no." But now I'm here defending. I think it comes down to this. This is my opinion. If you're talking, cheerleading comes in three different forms. Basically, you have the form where the cheerleaders are rooting on a team, primarily usually basketball, football. I don't think it generally moves into any other sport for the most part. The other is cheer competition, and that is
Hmm.
crazy big and huge. That is the one that's more of a competitive sport. And again, I heard the snippet of it, but then if we're talking cheer competition, the physical activity, and so I looked this up for you. Women's Sports Foundation. These are the elements to make up a sport. They go the physical activity, and that does happen in competition cheer. I've
Sure.
watched my daughter lift people up, throw people around, catch them. The stuff I've seen them do and wonder if my baby girl's gonna die.
Right.
Many, many, many times. She's on one leg, she's flying through the air to catch her.
Right.
I watch coaches. It's not a category, but coaches screaming at them to do better. I don't know. I always feel like that's a sport. If there's a coach somewhere yelling at them for messing up, it's not on the list. I'll say it has to be there, like 1A.
Right.
They also say rules indicating time, space, the purpose of the contest, how a winner is determined. Again, team and individuals. It's all there under the cheer competition. And the International Olympic Committee recognized cheer as a sport in 2021, though it hasn't been recognized for obviously Olympic play yet. And I did further research because I was curious as I was literally before I came on. I was like, I wonder if you can get scholarships for this. I'm pretty sure you can only get some money, but I wasn't. So I googled, I looked into it. The NCAA hasn't sanctioned it yet. They think it might one day. Because of that, that limits the amount of money that schools can give towards kids for cheering because it's not a sanctioned thing. But colleges do offer like scholarships within $500 to $2,000 for certain cheerleaders. It is really, really, really big. You know, so that's why I have to come on and say that I feel it is a sport when you're under the lens of the competition against. If you've ever been to a cheer competition or seen on ESPN, it's
Right.
ridiculous. Or you've seen moments of it, you're like, oh my god, how are they not all dead? How do you practice that without anyone being hurt every time? Um, Under that lens, it's a competition. But the other one, when they're just at a game cheering on, not just, I won't say just, but when they're at a game cheering on sports, that's not really a competition. I've seen them start cheer competitions against with the cheerleaders from the
Right.
opposing from the other side. I've seen that on college football where like, oh, it's like all of a sudden it's like that movie. They're going back and forth from across, but that's not really a sanctioned event.
Right.
But that's how I would think it would fall under that. So, Kev,
Right.
what do you think?
So, okay, number first, the comment in question, I was baited into by a gentleman who didn't show up tonight, and um, so anyhow, my daughter, who is 19, was also a cheerleader. So I have been to the competitions. And I remember one time she asked me, she said, "Hey, aren't you excited to go to my competition?" And I said, "No, I'm not." And so she's like, "Why?" Because I feel you. I get nervous when that stuff happens. Now my daughter is
Um,
pretty tall, and so she's not the one that they're tossing 90 feet in the air,
right,
and all
right.
this good stuff. But would I be lying saying that if it was over? But in my comment, what I was comparing it to were, Mr. Joey Chestnut and Hot Dog eating contests and that their competitions are competitions. So what creates a sport? Yes, I do know, and I don't need it replayed back to me. I know St. Joe's over there being like, "Hey, I can get the clip right now," and I said I'm making a
The
ruling on
videotape,
this.
exactly.
Not a sport. Is it hard? Yeah, but you brought the definition of a sport, but in the abstract, what my argument would be is that what defines a sport not by Webster's definition, but what do we constitute, and this is kind of why I'm doing the stupid history minute this month on stupid sports, because those are all sports that I researched that people get paid to do. They are professional sports. But what constitutes that? So, what would constitute somebody recognizing, like before you came on, say Joe and I were talking about, and we talk on the phone daily, and we were talking about, well, if it's in the Olympics, does that constitute a sport? Because I know cheerleading's been in the conversation.
Right.
I mean, does that constitute a sport? Does it having a professional level constitute a sport? Well, if that's the case, then swimming is out. There is no professional swimming. The highest swimming is the Olympics, and
Right.
technically, I mean, you can get endorsement deals, but you don't get paid to go to the Olympics. You get a stipend. I've known as many people who listen to this program know, I grew up a competitive swimmer, and so I've known people who have medaled in the Olympics, and I swam at the premier swimming venue here in Jacksonville, to where many Olympians come out of. It's a school called Bowles,
Mhm.
and but there's no professional swimming league like there is for baseball,
Right.
football, NBA, and all this. So with cheerleading and the competitions, I mean, is there a professional competition for cheer? I don't think so. I get what. Hang on, the Dallas Cowboy cheerleaders get paid.
Yes, they do. I was going to point that out. They get
Yeah.
paid,
Right.
but they're not competing against anyone. I think I look at it more of it's a physical activity and you're competing against someone else. I'm not really always on the page because, but then there's alignment, like competitive gaming. I don't know if I want to call that a sport. They get paid a lot of money and they're competing against somebody, but they're playing video games. And are they really doing a physical, other than I don't know. See,
Yeah, I'm
there's
gonna
some
make a
things I'm not
ruling on
sure
that
about.
right now. That's not a sport either.
Exactly.
Well,
You
But based
know,
on everything you said so far, it kind of falls in the line because they're getting paid, they're competing against each other. It's just a physical activity where, and they get paid a lot. These
well,
people, I want to watch.
I'm not saying that's the
But
rule. I'm just saying that that's something that was brought up.
yeah, see,
That
that's what it's weird.
does that? I guess my question is, what in the general, I mean, not the literal sense, but the general sense, what constitutes a sport? Like, would you guys say ping pong is a sport? Table tennis, is that a sport?
sure.
Yeah,
Okay.
Absolutely.
What about
yeah.
cornhole?
Right. So see, I think
There's
here's the thing
levels, but
is
sorry.
I think you have to look as anything can be a sport, right? The ultimate definition I think comes of a sport is there's a winner and there's a loser. So if you look at anything could be labeled a sport. If I challenge you to a race, that's a sport because there's going to be a winner and a loser. So there's competitive tag. Is that a sport? I don't think so. But
See, I would call
if
that a
you
game. Tag feels like a
right.
game,
So
and I
there's
think that's
different
the line. A game or a sport is like the line we're looking at. What's a game? What's a sport?
right.
Maybe.
And I think that there's definitely different categories or subsets where you can look at it and you say, where does that fall into? And that's where there definitely needs to be the line in the sand to say, okay. I mean, for the longest time, NASCAR, people would say that NASCAR wasn't considered a sport. But I'd like to see somebody else sit in a car for 6 hours, at a time and drive around and do that. It takes some physical exhaustion out of you. You
Right.
lose sometimes 10 pounds in a car that's gets up to 200 degrees that you're out there, and it does take some kind of mental capacity to do that and sit there. There can't be something to say that it's not a sport. Does technology play a huge factor in NASCAR? Absolutely, but somebody has to drive the car. So
I
I
mean,
don't know.
it feels like for some
Another one,
sports,
for
it's just
example, is people sitting there. Is poker a sport? I mean, I don't know. It's on ESPN.
They
It
make a
has its
ton of
own
money doing it.
channel.
They make a
They
ton of
make
money doing it.
it's the World Series of Poker is one of the most watched events on television. Um,
Then also I kicked it on Fox Sport or FS1 one night, and they
mhm,
had guys playing dominoes on there, and
right,
my son, who is 16, looks at me and goes, "I didn't know dominoes was a sport." And I said, "It's not a sport. That's six old guys with the gout." And
right.
and here's something that's on ESPN, the Entertainment and Sports Programming Network, every year. And I think this is probably the best comparison to cheerleading, which is the World Spelling Bee.
Correct. And I
Is
knew
on
that was going to come up.
ESPN, is on ESPN every year. You know,
Yep.
I know probably 10 comedians that have had a joke in their set in the past 10 years about the spelling bee, and whether or not, it's a sport. Why is it on ESPN? But it is one of ESPN's highest rated programs of the year.
Yep. Yep.
So
Yep.
is the spelling bee. And I know that the cheerleading competition, which is also on ESPN, the one that they have at Disney World every year,
Yep.
which I don't know, Mr. Richardson, if your daughter has gone to that one.
no. They may go this year. They're last year they didn't get to go, but this year they may actually go down to do an event for it. But yes, I've watched it and it's pretty big up here too. But I don't but I for me my hang up, and I can see that it's almost down to what you personally see as a sport. Like poker I see as a game. I don't see I'm always hung up on the physical competition, like you're
Sure.
like the NASCAR, like you're sweating, it's getting to I get that the poker you're up for all hours and they don't let you break much maybe, but it's light. There's maybe levels because ready there's competitive fishing. I mean,
Right.
is it a
Right.
sport technically? Yeah, but it's like barely making the line in terms of the amount of physical activity you're putting into it.
Now,
Um,
these are fighting words in
I don't
these
know.
parts, and I'm gonna say this. I'm gonna say this. These are fighting words in these parts, but fishing's not a sport either. That's a
Yeah.
bunch of guys drinking beer on a boat, hoping for the best. I
Yeah.
mean,
But those
let me put
competitive
this.
games, they're always
Yeah,
suggesting that it's but I don't know. I don't fish well enough to know. But
me neither.
I get it. I get the idea of like just figuring like poker. I see as a game. It's just I see NASCAR. I was one of the people who thought NASCAR early on was just it's the car, whatever. And then as I dug more into it, and honestly, that was when I was much younger. I got older. I know people who race. There's actually a pretty decent track here. That
Hmm.
Friday night is just, and I know a couple people who drive, and I spent some time. Oh wow, this is a lot more intense than I thought it was. This isn't like
Right.
the movie Cars. It's a little deeper, But other things, the cheering, it's just because, as you've seen for the competition, the things they're doing and the routines and everything, and there's a grading system of scoring. I don't know, but competitive eating. I don't
Right.
know if I don't know. That's also a big thing, and I understand spelling. The spelling bee is the highest rating, but it's a once in a year event. Like one time, like the Super Bowl is always the biggest thing because it's only on one. I understand football's a different animal. Football's always big. That's just the biggest one. But the spelling bee isn't like six times a year. If it was, it would go down. The cheerleading is once again in Florida. Um, I mean, I made a list of the biggest things that people debate, sport or not sport. Most of
Yeah.
them we covered.
Oh, I can't
We
wait for
said
this.
so. They're right. We did them already, so let's have some fun. I'll go through them and we just what do we think flat out based on
Yeah.
everything we talked about. And some of them we've already said, but we kind of didn't like solidify our points on it. All
Yeah.
right,
Okay.
in no particular order. The first one I have is poker. I'm gonna go with just a no on this one. I feel like it's more of a game. I don't know.
Okay.
What do you think, St. Joe?
Second,
I mean,
yeah.
It makes a lot of money and a lot of people watch it. So, um, I mean, it costs $10,000 to get into the game, just to buy into the World Series of Poker. Um, so, because of the phenomenon that it has become, I'll put it in the realm of that it's a sport.
I was
5.
speaking to somebody who plays poker at a high level today, and he and I said, "Why do you like playing poker?" And he explained it to me because you can play with it's not age specific. It's not
Right.
it doesn't care what your physicality is. It doesn't care what your gender is. It doesn't care, about anything. It's about, a game. And he called it a game. That's why I'm going to call it a game. You can make money from games. Like we wouldn't say that chess is a sport,
Right. Right.
but there are people
Right.
who make millions of dollars playing
Millions.
chess,
That's
millions of dollars. If I could figure out a way to make millions of dollars of playing that little tea game that I have at Cracker Barrel,
Yeah. Yeah.
that's on the table at Cracker Barrel,
Yeah.
I'd
Yeah.
I'd be in the money, man. I'm good at that game.
I got news. We got a competitive league of that opening up soon here on Long Island. So just come on out.
Really?
I will sign you. I'm kidding, but I wish there was. I wish there was. We don't have any Cracker Barrels here. I wish when we go
No?
down to the
Oh,
no, it's
wow.
on the island. But when
Oh,
we go
wow.
Wow.
down, I see them a lot. Uh, bowling's on the list.
That
Because
is an argument.
that is
That's
that was like the number. I they ranked them, and this is like the number 2 one that's the biggest debated is bowling. What do you guys think about bowling? I'm still thinking.
that's a good. I bowled in a league for a long time, and bowling's not easy. And
Right.
it's one that you can continually get better at if you do if you put the time in. Um, Man, I gotta think that bowling's a sport.
I you know, this is I'm making the rounds, man, because this is going to be another unpopular opinion, but I have a hard time calling something a sport that you don't have to be in shape to do. I mean, I have a hard time because the thing about sport and competition, I mean, I have many friends who are very good bowlers that are in bowling leagues and stuff
Yeah.
like that. I always thought you just went and did a bowling league to be able to drink the beer, I mean,
I
but
mean,
these
that's
guys
part of it.
take it seriously. Some of them are, they don't even go and eat. It's I mean, bowling to me is like what you do on a Friday night when you don't have anything else to do. I mean, I just that's tough though because they go on tour. I mean, if you're and you could almost make the same argument for golf.
You can almost make the same argument for golf.
So I think it's right on the line. I'm gonna have to make a call here. I'll go with bowling is a sport, but
Yeah, I'm
with
gonna
a high protest. Okay.
I'm gonna agree that I'm gonna go with you that bowling is a sport. Only that it's hard to do. If you're bad at it, you're bad at it. I think I see people like they're not in shape, but I see people in shape enough to do what they need to do for that particular sport. That same person doing bowling may not be able to run a marathon, but
Right.
he's physically equipped enough to handle this sport. Like a wrestler is big enough for what they do for their job, but they can't do other sports. Um, and I know if I've done it enough, I will end up sore at this point because my arm will hurt. Anything that makes me hurt the next day, if I overdo it, sometimes I feel like counts as a sport. So I'm gonna have to throw it in the category. That's all 3 of us. NASCAR we mentioned before.
Yeah.
And I said earlier I agree it's a sport. I think we kind of covered that one a little bit.
Yeah, I think it's got to be considered a sport.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I do too.
The next one down is golf, which we just brought up.
Golf was in the Olympics this year, so
Right.
I will
Yeah, but so
strongly
was
say
breakdancing.
not anymore. It's not, but I will say that if it's in the Olympics, it's got to be a sport. So I will say that golf is a sport.
I have made enough people mad and I know we have a contingent of golfers that listen to this program.
Yes, you do.
Yeah,
You
Yes,
know,
you do.
so I have in the past said that the only athlete on the golf course is the caddy. The guy that carries around the clubs.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that tells the golfer how far to hit it, does the math, and all that. But golf, I mean, it is a physical game. If you look at Tiger, I mean, the dude's cut,
Yeah.
yeah, but golf is a big mental game too. It's a huge, huge mental game too. And sometimes, how fit you are between your ears, it's got to count for something.
Sure.
So while they might not be the most physical people in the world, i.e. John Daly, or I don't know if you guys, I'm dating myself here, remember who Craig Stadler is,
Sure.
and people like that. I think that you have to, it's big enough. I think you have to call it a sport.
Yeah.
Yep. I think it's a sport. So,
Yep.
Mr. McDonald, who co-hosts one of the hosts of the podcast with us on the Fandom Orange, plays golf a lot. I've played one time, and one time I went with him, and yeah, I hurt myself just trying to hit the ball. I kept missing the ball, and I'm like, this is really hard to hit this and get this
yeah,
slant at the exact spot because you just don't whale it. You have to hit it with certain
Yeah.
follow through and not as hard as you want to hit it. And I'm like, yo, this is just difficult for me. So if he was here, he was saying it was a sport, and I would say it's a sport too. I find myself saying it's a sport if I've tried it and I fail at it. Clearly, it has to be a sport because I should be perfect at everything. So I'm putting it there. Fishing, I think we all kind of said like not so much. I don't know.
now I say that gets a hell no to me. Because these fishing people, I don't understand. I mean, I guess it's a lifestyle. Here there's a saying, and I hate it. They're like salt life, man.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I hate it because beach people are stupid. With all due respect, Sacha. And but the amount of money that these people spend on things makes people like I golf, right? And I have golf clubs that I paid. They weren't cheap, but I mean, these guys are paying thousands of dollars every time they go out, and they go out every weekend. And I'm just like, how do you do that?
Yeah.
I mean, my wife would kill me. She's like,
my kid fishes.
You're spending $250. I mean, they spend $500 on like gas.
For the boats and things like that is very expensive.
Yeah,
for sure. Yeah. But my
answer that phone and put them on. We want to talk to them.
It's my daughter calling from college. I already put her on hold. I'm sorry.
No, you're good. You're good. We like to talk to people.
You know what?
You can spend.
I would totally put her on.
You can spend enormous amounts of money on fishing equipment. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, but it's not unbelievable. It's not a sport. I'm gonna get so many phone calls about this tomorrow. God, I'm gonna get so many phone calls going.
I think it's more of a hobby. Yeah. I'll put it in the hobby category.
It's like basket weaving.
I think you can make money at it and you can do well, but I think it's more of a hobby.
Yeah,
definitely.
Yeah, kind of like knitting.
Next, right there. 3 more that I have. Competitive eating is one that people debate all the time.
Okay,
this is a tough one.
Let me take this real quick. Okay, I don't think it's a sport. However, I can't have my July 4th without it.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, I love watching it. I love watching it. I get a little grossed out watching it. But it's just like what would constitute me to go up and try to eat 70 hot dogs? And this guy's like thin.
Right. Kobayashi is like ripped and he's eating all these stuff.
Joey Chestnut's not fat.
Yeah, he's pretty
tall. He's tall, but he's not fat. So I do not think it's a sport in any way, shape, or form. However, that's another high rated program on ESPN.
It is very much
July 4th Coney Island hot dogging contest.
It's
I
very
think it's
gross
a
to watch. I 1000% agree. It's gross to watch people dip hot dogs in bread and water, and then oh gosh, I can't even with that.
yeah.
But yeah, no sport for me.
No, I don't. I think it's more competition than sport. I think it's a
Right.
one-time thing, and I think it's just it's interesting, it's intriguing, but I don't think it's a sport.
Competitive gaming, which we mentioned earlier, I feel like is just gaming.
Yeah, same
So
thing.
it's right there with no, I won't say with poker, but it's just you're playing a game. I don't know with friends.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think it's got its own esports league or whatever, but
Yeah,
I just
a lot
don't
of money, but not
I
the
don't
same.
feel like it's in the same category.
What I got trouble with this because I'm not going to put down anything that people make millions of dollars for, but I also want to tell my 16-year-old son, go out and talk to people, man.
Exactly.
I'm saying go out and speak to people. Yeah, how are you gonna get a job? Dude, by the time I was 16, you know what I had gotten myself into? I was 16 in 1991. Okay. And you know how much trouble I'd gotten myself into? A lot, you
Yeah.
know, and you know how much trouble my 16-year-old son's gotten into? Zero,
Right.
which I'm like, but the dude just gets on now if his experience in gaming brings $10 million to the family, I'm not going to
Sure.
complain.
Strike this from the record. Right.
I'm
Right.
not going to complain. However, it's not a, I mean, did you guys ever have the original Nintendo NES?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm about your
So,
age. I have everything you say. Yeah.
yeah. Um, so you remember Super Mario, right?
Yeah.
Came with it,
Absolutely.
right? Right.
Absolutely.
So how long did it take you to beat that?
I mean, a little while. You sat there and played it
Not
and
that
played it and
long.
played it until you
Right,
beat
right.
it.
You just played it.
Yeah.
You were always Mario, and unless you were the younger sibling, and then you were Luigi, right?
Right. Absolutely.
But I was the older sibling in the house, so I was never Luigi. Um, so that's on a smaller scale, but if these guys are playing these games and beating these games and making, I mean, that kid, the Fortnite World Championship was
Yeah.
like $13 million or something like that.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
Crazy.
That's nuts
It's
for
Crazy.
playing a video game. I mean,
yeah.
even Beebs and Jay from the Two Penny Podcast and all those guys, Mike, they all get into that Call of Duty stuff.
Yeah.
Now don't get me wrong. There's a couple of people I'd like to shoot in the forehead. You know what I'm saying? But
right. Right.
but I mean, there's also a thing for getting out and talking to people. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? But that is this generation's, like, they would rather on a Friday night when we would go either to the bowling alley or go to the high school football game that's somewhere after. Like when I was in high school, Pizza Hut was the Red Roof Pizza Huts were
Mm-hmm.
a big hangout after that. They would rather all get on these Xbox or whatever and play Call of Duty
Yeah.
until 3 o'clock in the morning.
Yep. Yep.
I mean,
Absolutely. I agree with you.
and that's their thing. The only problem I don't have it with, and this is a long way to say it's not a sport. The only problem I don't have with it is because as a parent, it keeps them off the street after midnight.
I
I was about
I
to
agree
say
with you
that. That was what I was
100%.
going to say.
You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? That is a concern that baby boomers had for us Gen X kids because we weren't home.
Right.
We weren't home. Again, different time. A
Mm-hmm.
different time. The 80s and 90s were a different time, but I remember my parents clearly waiting up when I got home. And sometimes after I turned 18, sometimes it wasn't still at the house. It was 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock in the morning, but
Mm-hmm.
that is I don't know about you guys, but that is something that I don't have to worry about with either
Right.
of my kids,
Right.
because that's not their thing. They have this. We didn't have all this online stuff.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, what we're doing right now in the 80s and 90s was considered very futuristic.
Star
Sure.
Trek.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, so anyhow, that's a long way to say it's not sport. That's that's
I agree it's not a sport, but let me say this though. I graduated high school in 1994, so yeah, I'm in that same zone of you
yeah.
of just like this is a different time. And I was about to say before you said it, the fact that I mean, my oldest is 20, at college. My middle child's away at college, but I have a younger one who's 13. Um, Knowing that some nights they went out to hang out with their friends, And before Life 360, honestly, now I'm like, when are they coming home? Where are they going? Like, because I had to worry, because I worry, because I know what's happening.
Mhm.
I'm worried sometimes.
Sure.
I feel like I I got to a certain point where I was able to shield them from so many dangers, even though I was warning them about it, but they're still out there in your own edge. But then the nights where my son's down here where I am now playing Call of Duty with friends, he got the headphones on, and I
Right.
can just go to bed because I know he's going to be up. They're all talking to each other. It's 3 in the morning. He's got chips and soda, and he's good to go.
Yep.
I did appreciate that fact as well. But I get what you're saying about talking to people, but it
Yep.
doesn't hurt that I can go to sleep and not
No,
panic.
no, 100%. Yeah.
But it's definitely not a sport.
No, no. I'm with you.
Two more guys. Um, the spelling bee, which we kind of went over for a minute ago, but I never went back to it. What are your thoughts on the spelling bee? I think it falls almost the same line as what you said earlier about not to teach kids on in shape. I'm not saying it that way, but it doesn't revolve physical activity enough where it's just more of a mental thing, like a chess thing. You just have to be able to spell. I don't know. Makes a lot of money, but that isn't necessarily my thing for it. It's a mental game, not
Yeah.
really physical, not really a sport. I don't know if I even call it a game though. A competition, I think, is the best, in
Yeah.
my
I
opinion.
think it's clearly a competition. I think it's interesting to watch just because these kids know words that are just fascinating, but it's not a sport.
I think that unless um a linebacker from the Kansas City Chiefs comes
Right.
through and knocks the glasses off of one of those competitors, then it's not a sport. You know what kills me is that, yeah, and I'm into my wife is a teacher. I don't know if I've said that 5 million times on the show, but my wife's a teacher, so we watch like educational programs and stuff like that. Like and stuff that involves kids. Like she was right there with me watching the college Little League World Series. And I mean, and we have kids, and anyhow, so we'll watch a little bit of spelling bee. For me, it's to see if I could spell the damn word.
Right.
And so for her, it's like that. But what kills me is like it'll come to a commercial, and then it'll be a commercial for like Aspercream,
Yeah.
that has nothing to do
Yeah.
with the spelling bee, but because it's on ESPN,
Yeah.
Right,
and I know
right,
ESPN owns ABC. They don't own ABC. Disney owns them all.
right.
So that's probably what it's on, but they're not going to put I want the prelims. I want the first round of the spelling bee to where they give a kid like a really easy word and he gets it wrong. And, and his parents, because I don't know. Have you guys ever been to a chess competition?
No.
The
No,
parents are worse than the kids.
Yeah, I'm sure.
I mean,
I've
when
heard
I
a
was in
lot of
Little League Baseball, I played at a I'm talking, like T-ball and tadpole, like I'm talking 10 and under, right?
Mhm.
And I played at a place called the Briarwood Athletic Association, and we always called it BAA. And they had a sign. I'll never forget. It's a sign where the parents sit, and it said BAA, be an adult, let the children play.
That's funny.
Brilliant sign.
And
Yeah.
and I bet you the parents in the spelling bee are just as bad as the chess and the baseball. They call them here. I don't know if they call them up there, but they call them soccer moms here.
Yeah.
You know,
It's just as bad up here. My daughter was in the varsity basketball team because she graduated high school, and we go to the games, and some of the parents, especially from the opposing teams, are just they're courtside and they're yelling at the refs.
yeah,
They're yelling at the kids, heckling them to miss free throws. I'm like, the kid's 15. Stop. Just
yeah.
it is ridiculous. Some of these parents are ridiculous. And a couple of them get escorted out sometimes. It is pretty bad.
So
Soccer
my
mom,
s-
soccer dad, the whole thing.
so my son plays basketball very competitively, and there are some dads that I'll sit there, and most people now at this point know what I like to moonlight as. And so when I say something snarky or sarcastic or something like that, a lot of them know that I'm joking, but some of them don't. And
Mhm.
and some of them will yell at the refs, and I'll say loud enough so they can hear me. That I bet you that helps. I bet you
Yeah.
he's gonna listen to you. I bet you he's going to do that.
Hard. That's awesome.
And then usually my wife will say something to the tune of "shut up," but not that nice. So yeah, I just don't know why. All you're doing is embarrassing your child.
Yep.
When you do that, I understand passion. Trust me, I understand passion.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
But there's nothing out there that I would do to embarrass my child unless I'm embarrassing them, like, just acting a fool, but not being mean or anything like that to where, it's really embarrassing.
No, there's not millions of dollars on the line. It's not that deep.
Not yet. Not
Relax.
yet. My
Yeah.
my retirement plan is my kids, man.
Exactly. I mean, my daughter's at Penn State right now. I'm like, you better study hard. You better
Oh,
get
yeah.
this worked out.
The
So,
Nittany Lions.
yeah, absolutely. All right, last one, and this one's just pro wrestling.
Oh man, that's a
Hulk Hogan in
tough
the
one.
sport.
Yikes.
I mean, I have my opinion, but you guys can go first. As someone who follows it and watches the show with my kids a little bit, I have some opinions on it, but it's just, what do you guys think?
I followed it until my favorite era of pro wrestling was when Raw and Nitro were on at the same time. That was
1000%.
I mean, you didn't deal with commercials. You just flipped the channel.
Yep.
That was my favorite. I'm a Hulk Hogan, Ric Flair kind of guy. Before that, WWF against NWA or WCW, so that was my favorite era. When we saw people like Goldberg come up. That's also the era where it came out that it was scripted. Okay.
Right.
Now,
Even though
the
we knew
argument that I have is I will fight to the death when somebody tells me wrestling is fake. It's not fake.
No.
It's scripted. Two very different things.
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying? Hulk Hogan had to lift Andre the Giant. I mean, they actually jump off of those top ropes. They actually, do very, very physical things. However, it's a male soap opera.
I mean, if you watch Hell in a Cell, though, and you see Mick Foley getting thrown off of that cage and he dislocates his shoulder and goes through and I mean, he gets knocked out. And there's a ton of things, are the Hardy Boys flying off the ladders and just, there's a ton of things that happen. If you're going off of the definition of physical exertion and things of what constitutes a sport, it's definitely a sport. If
people have died doing it.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean,
Owen Hart died.
Yeah.
Falling to the ring.
I mean, Triple H tore off his thigh muscle, quadricep, and finished the match.
Let's not get it. Triple H's a bitch. Okay.
He was a great wrestler, though. I mean, it's just, there's a ton of things that can happen where these guys, look at the Rock would not be the Rock without wrestling.
No.
There's a ton of things that
John
happen.
Cena wouldn't be John Cena.
Right. Exactly.
There's Hogan still be Terry Bollea.
There's a ton of people that came out of wrestling.
I will challenge you this too. If you watch the old WWF, the old like get on Hulu or whatever, there are great documentaries.
Yeah,
great documentaries. About I the reason I stopped watching was because it was basically when The Rock and Stone Cold stopped doing their thing.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And the reason I stopped watching is because it got a tad ridiculous. You know what I'm saying?
Did.
But like I'll just tell, back in the day in WCW, Ric Flair and Ricky the Steamboat were going at it.
Yeah.
Okay. It was believable. You heard all the wrestling's fake and all that, but you didn't want to believe it because Ric Flair had blood in that white hair.
Yeah.
Have
you seen the movie The Iron Claw?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that was. I mean, that's
Right.
as real as it gets. That was like. I mean, that was a great movie, and it was like it was so true. That whole family, they lived to be wrestlers, and the guy like literally lost his foot in a motorcycle accident, and then became intercontinental champion. I mean, it
I
was
mean,
just
I remember the Von Erichs wrestling,
yeah,
Yep.
you
yeah,
know, and the Steiner
Harry, the
brothers,
whole thing.
yeah.
and I've also seen the movie Fighting with My Family,
Yeah.
which is fun.
Just, it's just. I mean, it was just a. I mean, that's a great question, though. I think if you can have anything that involves where you have action figures made out of you, I is going to be a
Well,
sport.
then Star Wars is a fucking sport.
No, no, that's a
Okay, well, you
movie.
get
Here's the,
action figures, GI Joe with Kung Fu grip,
No,
you know.
no, that's a
I
movie
think
franchise. That's different. But I'm saying if you can come to have, there's like bobblehead dolls that are off of baseball. There's things in football. But I'm saying if you can go to where they can play outside of, build wrestling things around it and have the action figures to do it, it's got to be a sport.
I,
You're
as
not seeing
someone
Michael
who,
Phelps dolls. You know what I mean?
no,
Maybe
I
you
just want
are.
to say that Ric Flair was my favorite growing up. Ric
Yeah,
Flair still consistently is one of my passwords to various things. It's been like
Yeah.
Flair. I
that's
had like
hilarious.
T-shirts and like my mother's from the South, as in Alabama, but she came up here, and in the South there was a lot of wrestling. So I go down there and
Yeah,
everyone was watching WCW. It was big, 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 big. Georgia Dome, the whole thing. Went to all these events, and then I'm up here in the North where WWE was big, but I watched both. But Flair literally has been my guy my whole life. I can quote him. That Steamboat match, I could watch. I've watched. It's like a 60-minute one. Watched it, and I met Mick Foley. He was doing a book signing here, and so I paid the thing, got the book, and he was signing. I literally asked him one question because everyone was trying to get a question. I'm like, all right. I said, who doesn't hit as hard as other people? I wanted to know who, because I know you hear behind the scenes, they are throwing punches, they are hitting each other, but some people are a little less stiff than others. They always said.
right.
And he said Bret Hart is the nicest person to be in the ring with. I forgot who he said was the other person who just hits harder, but it's physical. They get hurt. It is scripted. It's like a male soap opera. It's like watching one of these TV shows in person. Like you're in the studio audience for
Yeah,
Friends or ER or something. Except for it, I don't count it as a sport because even though it's a physical activity, the way to determine a winner is preordained. There's no real determination of a winner. That part, like you said, is scripted, which to me makes it what they call it now, which is sports entertainment. Some of them do. It's
sure.
sport adjacent, but they do every injury you guys mentioned, and they get hurt a lot. You see
Yeah,
those split open. Flair was always bleeding.
yeah,
Um, but the result is predetermined, which to me puts it out of the category. But there's no way you cannot be in shape to do that, no matter how big or small they are.
yeah.
To run around and pretend to fight and not kill each other and protect each other for like 40 minutes, 30 minutes, it's incredible. It really is crazy to watch.
Man,
I agree. I think it's since it's predetermined who wins. I think sports entertainment would be a good thing to call it. It's kind of like a Broadway play,
Yeah, yeah.
to a degree. It does have a script. It's live. I got the opportunity a couple times to go see Monday Night Nitro
Oh,
and
cool.
experience what it felt like when that Goldberg music came on, and before and what I always thought, and I think very nostalgically about wrestling, because my dad took me to wrestling, here. I remember when WCW had the two rings next to each other,
I
and
love war games. Yeah,
yeah, and here in the old Jacksonville Coliseum, and then and anyhow, what I always thought was cool, and WWE really has perfected this, is when they kick the music, but you don't see the wrestler yet, and there's that pause in time, you know,
hmm
yeah.
and the anticipation. I remember being a 14-year-old kid, and that I am a real American,
Yeah.
and and then there's certain things, or the Ric Flair, that iconic music, and seeing him out with the robe, and I'm talking like at the height of Ric Flair.
Right. Right.
I'm talking, Ric Flair fighting Terry Funk.
Yep.
Those matches when Sting had blonde hair.
Yeah.
I
The
mean,
Before the
crow
mask.
thing. Yep.
yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
the
I
crow
mean,
thing. That's the blonde teenage
Lex
guy. Yeah.
Lex Luger, people like that. If on the
Mr.
WWF,
Perfect.
yeah, on the WWF side, you
Perfect.
had you had Rick Rude. How could we forget about Roddy Piper? I mean, these iconic Saturday morning wrestling with Brother Love. I mean, just yeah, I feel very
Razor
nostalgic.
Ramon.
Man,
Yep.
yeah, Scott Hall. He
Before he
died.
was Scott
Just
Hall.
He
Scott
died.
Hall passed.
Yeah.
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 Yeah. Sid Vicious passed away yesterday. Do you remember
Wow.
Yeah.
Sid Vicious?
Yeah, oh, yeah.
Kevin Nash before in Diesel. He was with Diesel
Yeah.
before Kevin. It's just all these things where it was all like,
Yeah, we need to
yeah,
come back and
big
talk
boss
wrestling one
man.
day.
Basically the cast of Adam Sandler's The Longest Yard.
Yeah.
You know,
The
Yeah.
Iron
uh,
Sheik. Can you
Yeah.
imagine
Austin
the
was in
Iron
that.
Sheik coming out now?
that's a great trivia question. Who did the Iron Sheik lose his title to?
Bob Backlund.
Nope,
Is that it?
Hulk Hogan.
Was it Hogan? Oh,
Yeah,
Backlund. He beat Backlund for it, and then yeah,
yeah,
right, right.
Hogan.
Or
He wouldn't work
or
today. They both
Animal.
have
Do you remember
characters.
Animal?
What,
He would
George the
Yes.
always
Animal Steel?
he
Yeah.
would come and eat the turnbuckle, and then you'd have who was um like
Elizabeth.
the witch doctor guy that spit the green.
Oh, the Great Muta. The
There's so
Right.
Great
many
Muta.
names.
And
Papa
dude, I'll
Shango.
tell you,
Or,
one of my favorite wrestlers growing up, it was WWF, was Hacksaw Jim Duggan.
Yeah, Hacksaw Jim Duggan was great. He's still around.
Yeah,
Ricky
and the
Steamboat
two by
Dragon.
four.
Man, there's
and
so many old
and
names.
the Junkyard Dog.
Yep.
You
Yep.
know,
We
Coco
forgot about the Ultimate
Beware
Warrior.
with
what's
that
that?
The Ultimate
Ultimate
dance.
Warrior.
Warrior.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there was a good part of a documentary I watched
Yeah.
about the Ultimate Warrior and Hulk Hogan not liking each other at all.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that when they
Got
were
fired.
inducting the Ultimate Warrior to the WWF Hall of Fame, Hogan was basically told, "Don't talk to him until after the ceremony or whatever," and that's how deep, because they had such a rivalry. Because Hogan felt that Ultimate Warrior was trying to take his, the shine off of Hogan. He's like the next Hogan,
Yeah.
and with all great men, they're afraid to lose their power, and Hogan had felt that he had just kind of taken Andre the Giant out, and then Andre the Giant died, so he did. Yeah, there's a big rivalry between Ultimate Warrior
Yeah, I
and
remember how the Warrior had gotten fired because he had beat Hogan and won that championship. As we know, it's all scripted because Vince wanted to go a different way because Warrior was building such a buzz, and maybe Hogan would move on to different stuff. But Hogan obviously said didn't like losing that championship spot, preordained or not. They liked being the champ. And then apparently at some point the Warriors' first feud, I remember this well, was against Macho Man, whatever. And then at some point Vince wanted to kind of switch back to getting Hogan the championship. So they set up this match, and I remember I just saw this the other day. Hogan was teaming with the Warrior at SummerSlam versus Macho, and I want to say I don't know, it was Zeus. It was someone else. So apparently the day of the and now the Ultimate Warrior, his contract's running out. He now wants a new contract for more money than Hogan. So he holds Vince up and gives him a note the day of SummerSlam saying, if you don't pay me this much money, I will walk tonight. Now, they've already promoted this thing for weeks. It's been on TV. This is their biggest event. He pretty much held Vince like at gunpoint. So the story goes Vince agreed to the terms. They did the match, and he fired him immediately when the match was over. And then Warrior was gone for a very long time. Just kicked him
Oh,
wow.
out. Like, nope, not paying you, you're out. Because he needed him to finish the kind of match thing. That's the weird stuff with this, because behind it, like you say, it's an acting show. But can you imagine someone on the cast of, I don't know, Cheers or something saying, you know what, I refuse to work unless Sam does. You know what I mean? Because
yeah.
they,
Right.
as much as it's preordained, they got so invested in their character, they took it personal when they lose a title that isn't really a thing. So many funny stories about wild stories behind the scenes of all the politicking. Hogan,
Yeah.
these people, and all these real peaks. It's interesting.
St. Joe, that man, you got to do a list on Nailed It about wrestlers.
Yeah, I've talked a little bit about them, but yeah,
I
you're
mean,
right. I
that
should
the
probably
height
do.
of wrestling, late 80s, early 90s.
Yeah.
Like I'll tell you this, and I know that sound you hear is people clicking off. What the fuck they talking about wrestling for? But I remember there are 5 times that I remember where I was in my life. 86 when the Challenger blew up. 81 when Reagan was shot. To September 8th, 2001. Okay. I remember exactly where I was when I beat Mike Tyson for the first time on Mike Tyson's Punch Out. And I remember exactly where I was when Bill Goldberg beat Hulk Hogan on Monday Night Nitro. I mean that was the height. That was 1997. And this guy, that was before even Goldberg spoke.
Yeah.
He hadn't spoken at that point. That was before the who's next crap,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
And just I mean, WrestleMania 1, 2, and 3, these were great WrestleManias.
Yeah.
Who doesn't remember Hogan slamming Andre the Giant?
Andre the Giant. Yeah. Yeah.
Who doesn't
I
remember
took you
that?
guys down the rabbit hole today.
Man,
Yeah. It's all
man,
good.
man, that was my, and I didn't understand the people who are like wrestling stupid. No, you're stupid. I mean, I mean, it was just, it was like fighting words. You either picked, you pick a side. Great documentary about WCW is when they got Hogan to come back and they made him bad.
It made him NWA. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
or NWO. Yeah,
Yeah. NWO. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
Sorry.
And
the
then
story
they
goes,
went
they
on.
didn't think he was going to do it. They thought he was going to flake at the last minute,
Yeah.
and his backup was to have Sting go bad. But then Hogan agreed because they thought he was going to flake. It like not the best thing he could have done. He extended his career so much further
Oh yeah.
by just being
Hogan made a good
a different
heel.
character.
He actually made a
Oh
really
yeah,
good heel.
because it hurt. Because you felt
Yeah.
bad if you cared about him all the time. That's the point. They pull at
Yep.
your heartstrings as a kid.
But
Yeah.
after a while and the NWO stuff comes back and he went and got that yellow and red again,
Yeah.
I mean that even, and man, you know what? It's hard not to be romantic about professional wrestling.
Yeah.
We heard that
know,
earlier.
You
We
know,
heard it
You know
earlier.
something about wrestling? Bring me back. I'll be happy to jump on and talk more with you.
Yeah. Yeah. We might have to. Beavis likes wrestling a lot too. So that could be another one. But
a lot of people wouldn't think that I would be into wrestling, and I'm not anymore. Like I could tell you, like, I mean, is Roman Reigns still wrestling?
Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, I know Cena just retired. The Rock likes to go back and forth.
Yeah.
It's gotten better than that zone where you talked about where it kind of corny. They PG'd a lot of these sponsors, that sort of thing. But they've turned recently back towards, I won't say attitude-ish, but it's definitely a little more towing that line for this generation a little more intense than it used to be. Like, I remember the low at the attitude. They're kind of bringing it back up as I follow along with my kids. So it's different. Roman's pretty cool.
I'll tell you this, what I like now, more, and I don't buy WrestleMania or whatever, but I have TikTok just like everybody else. And I'll tell you, I like that they're bringing the women more into it.
Mm-hmm.
I really like that. And I think Charlotte Flair is not ugly.
Yeah. She's a good looking girl.
I love Flair's daughter. She's incredible.
Man.
She's really incredible.
But like I mentioned that fighting with my family, or that was about a female wrestler,
Yeah.
and the best part of that movie is when The Rock yells at him, like he's in character and he yells at him. He's like, okay, something like that, and he's actually teaching him what to do,
That's
and
funny.
really, those people who say that Dwayne Johnson is not a good actor, I'm going to fight those guys, because I love,
I think he's funny.
I think he's a great actor. But the wrestling of late 80s, really the 80s, early to mid 90s. I probably stopped watching in 2000, 2001. really as a but I mean, it was appointment TV for me.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, definitely,
Monday nights especially. USA and TNT.
absolutely.
Yeah, for sure.
So
Cool.
um, well, we are past our, as St. Joe likes to say, our contractually obligated hour.
Yeah.
But we want to hear about what. Tell us about the Fandalorians and what you got going on.
All right, so our podcast is called The Fandalorians, Teachers by Day, Nerds by Night. It's myself, it's Mr. McDonald, Mr. G. We're all teachers. Mr. McDonald I've known for 40 years. I met that guy in first grade, and he actually, again, a teacher as well in the city. Mr. G, I've known him for 22 years, maybe. I met him at my wedding. My wife's a teacher too. He was working in her building. She kept saying, "Hey, you really like this guy? He'd be funny. He likes the same stuff as you." I'm like, "Man, but I'm too old to make friends." I met him in the wedding when he comes by to say congratulations, and then also we became friends. So we talk all sorts of pop culture and fandom. We debate, we argue, we bicker, we make fun of each other a lot, especially since we had like a relationship for years with each other. From, I mean, we've done like Marvel, Star Wars, TV shows, The Bear. Some fan asked us to do Bridgerton because it was the biggest thing. I watched it. I actually
Hmm.
enjoyed it. It wasn't that bad. People recommend things. So pop culture, fandom, list, best movies of the 80s, 90s, whatever, whatever. And we keep a teacher theme. So it's a lot of fun, a lot of jokes, a lot of excitement every Monday.
Sweet. Have you done Deadpool and Wolverine yet?
We just did Deadpool Wolverine. I actually got one of my teacher colleagues to come on who never watched Marvel movies, and her husband, who's a police officer. That episode dropped 2 days ago, and we all watch it. It's fun because we watch stuff, but we refuse to talk about it until we hit the mic. So we came out of the theater, we said nothing to each other, got into cars and drove away, and then we turned on the mics and just started talking. But yeah, we just did Deadpool Wolverine. I loved it, so big fan of that.
My favorite line out of that movie was, "Give me one more word, gubernatorial."
Yeah,
That was my favorite line out of the whole. I love that movie. I think it saved the MCU personally.
we have I'm not sure about that one, but we definitely. My thing is a lot of the things I liked about that movie they can't really do it in the other films.
Right.
So it's almost like they gave it a boost, but I'm not sure what they're gonna do moving forward. I'm nervous. But we do categories like star student, like our favorite character in the episode, or what was their yearbook quote, as in best line in the series, in the movie. And my best line that I put in the episode was when Gambit was saying things that made no sense, and he said, "Who's your dialect coach? The Minions? Dialect coach?
Right.
The Minions?" That was my line for the quote. We do
That's
rewatchable
funny.
moments and a bunch of other things too. Best needle drop. The best music needle drop for me, I think, would be the Madonna song, but they had so many good ones in there. The whole movie was incredible, and we talk about it. Yeah,
Everybody talks about the bye 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 and the opening, which is great, and the like a prayer, and that's a good story if you've seen the interview with Hugh Jackman and Ryan
yeah,
Reynolds about how they got that. But I'll tell you, a very well placed song in there was at the end when because he's calling himself Marvel Jesus the whole movie, and
yeah,
then at the end he goes, "He has risen," and they play that Goo Goo Dolls song from City of Angels, and
Iris.
yeah,
yeah, and it was just such a well in that, and the sparks are coming down, and it's just such a
yeah,
well placed song that whoever edited that movie needs to win something.
so good.
I mean, it was such a well placed the music in there, and I watched an interview to where they were talking about they had this playlist of just obscure songs that just don't go, we got out of that movie and immediately got on Spotify and got the soundtrack,
Yeah,
and
oh yeah, it was great.
it was a good movie. So you're every Monday night.
Every
You're
Monday, new episode drops in the
okay.
morning, and we just have a new episode. This last episode 2 weeks ago was the one we talked about. We just did one that came out yesterday. Um, we talked about, maybe you guys to answer this before you get out of here. I know you got to leave, but think about this one.
Yeah.
What would you like to have seen rebooted, redone, revisited? Like, for example, if you remember the movie The Last Starfighter, I don't know if you guys remember that film from when we were
Dude,
kids.
I want to
Thank
play that video game.
Right. For those of you who don't know, Last Starfighter is a kid who finds this video game in his area. He plays it, turns out the game is a testing ground for this
Yeah, it's an
alien
audition.
group who needs pilots to
Mhm.
get
Yeah.
shows in the fun. That was a movie someone suggested as a reboot with the special effects we have today. It's a perfect IP that's left untouched. So we had another guest on, and we were all coming up with three things, TV or movies, we think should just be revisited, like it's sitting there, or a continuation. As in, one of my picks was the TV show Cheers. They brought a lot of shows back in TV shows. I love Cheers. Give me
Mhm.
another season with the bar suddenly open, 10 episodes. Give them everyone a lot of money. Have a little fun. They brought back Will and Grace. They brought back all these TV shows and continue the story. They did Roseanne, whatever. That was one of my picks of either continue, reboot, whatever. That was the episode that came out on Monday. Can you guys think of anything off the top of your head with no notice you'd love to see brought back or redone?
Okay. So movie, yeah, Logan's Run with
Yeah, that's a
today's
great pick.
with today's technology.
That's a
Um,
great one.
and
I like that.
okay, so I have been lobbying. One of my favorite television shows in the 80s was a show called The A Team. Okay. Now they made a movie out of it with Liam Neeson and Rampage Jackson and
Yeah.
Charlton Copley and the guy who plays Rocket.
Pretty boy.
Yeah, yeah. Who is he? Say Joe. Dude, he's the
He's
biggest
the pretty
actor
boy
out of
from
them.
the movie.
Um,
Bradley Cooper.
Bradley Cooper, right?
Yeah.
And I thought it was hilarious. I liked it. It's very true to the television show. Outside of them smashing the van, within the first 30 minutes of the movie. And I have been lobbying ever since it came out for an A Team 2. But since then, Bradley Cooper has gotten huge. You know,
Maestro.
Liam Neeson had 3 Taken movies that went off the
Mhm.
charts,
Mhm.
so it'd probably be just between those two $50 million, to get those two. I thought the guy they played, Charlton Copley played Murdoch, and I thought he was the best part of the damn movie.
He was really good. He
I
was
mean,
really,
he was
really good.
really funny. Jessica, Mrs. Timberlake, she's in it. And I just have been, yeah. So I want an A Team 2. Why can't I get an A Team 2?
Liam Neeson's
Hmm.
about to do the Naked Gun soon too. So
Yeah.
that's funny. That's a good thing. I would love to see the series brought back too. But yeah, the 18.
I know they're remaking it. I think they are in the process of remaking it, but I'd like to see the Never Ending Story come back. A remake of that.
Oh gosh, I can't watch that thing die again.
Yeah.
A
My therapy bill was off. I
train.
can't do that again. Oh,
Our
it's so heartbreaking.
text.
Yes, I
And,
know, man. It's a killer.
I'll tell you
Yeah.
a movie that I would just like remade, just start over, just delete the film that we had and do it again is The Rise of Skywalker. You
Mm.
know,
Yeah.
I mean, that's a whole nother podcast. We don't need it. I mean,
Yes, it
don't
is.
get me started. We'll be here till
Don't
midnight. You get me started on Star
don't
Wars.
get me. Listen. You gotta have me back. We need to battle some of these things out because between Last Jedi and that, I could go forever on what they did wrong and how we would fix it. But yes, that is
We
definitely
might have to get it up on Nailed It or Finding Your Way because by definition, this is a sports show, and people will be like tuning in, being like, hey, what do they think about the Jaguars? What do they think about, the NFL? And we're sitting here being like, look, okay, Luke, I mean, we'd
You
be
know we can
talking
throw a
about that.
fastball. Let's somehow
Yeah.
tangentially make it sports related. Who
Yeah.
Luke pitched? Speaking of Luke,
Yeah.
this hour.
It is,
Yeah.
We covered some sports entertainment. We walked around. We
yeah.
can go on other stuff. I'm happy to join you
Yeah.
guys anywhere for anything.
Yeah.
Cool.
It's all good.
Is the lightsaber competition? Is that a sport?
Oh, boy.
Next time on Unfiltered Sports Weekly, we're going to talk about lightsabers. But anyhow, where can they find you? You're on Twitter. You're on Facebook.
We are on at Fandalorians Pod on Twitter, and we're on Instagram, and it's at Fandalorians Pod, I think, on everything. And if I'm wrong, just go to the podcast because it's written there. Because I'm terrible at remembering the names of the 4 different things that we have. I'm just gonna pretend that's what it is, but you'll find us. We're there. We're making fun. We make little short video clips of every episode too, to promote and everything like that. So it's a lot of fun. Please check us out. It's more like this with 2 other guys. It's just lots of 2 different people, but same
Yep.
type of bickering and banter and fun. Crazy topics.
It's
Sweet.
very good.
Sweet. And you can also find them at unfpod.com as a very big member of the Unfiltered Studios podcast network, along with many other podcasts. I think at last count, St. Joe 27, maybe
27, 28, somewhere around there.
27.
Yeah.
Okay, somewhere in there. We lost count. People like us should probably know how many.
Yeah.
But many different things. There's something for everybody over at unfpod.com and Unfiltered Studios. You can find that at unfpod on Twitter as well. So for the Beebs that was absent tonight, for St. Joe with Nailed It and Show Me Your Trips. My name is the Kev, and we'll catch you guys next week.